That's exciting.
Hi, everyone. Just waiting for a couple more people to trickle in. We're so glad you could join us.
Okay. What's that, snipping?
All right, so let's get started. So my name is Kathleen Kuo, and I am a program manager for Nevada Humanities. And on behalf of the organization, it's my pleasure to be with you all this afternoon. So for those of you who don't know who we are your state's affiliate, Nevada, for the National Endowment for the Humanities. And we try to connect and transform communities by sharing and amplifying the stories, ideas, experiences, and traditions of the diverse people of Nevada. So this creative workshop series is a part of our Nevada Reads programming for 2021. This year we chose 2 memoirs that encourage us to celebrate and appreciate the natural world and to think more deeply about where we live and our connection and responsibility to the earth. So the workshop series was inspired by the themes and illustrations found in one of those memoirs in particular. It's a really beautiful book. It's World of Wonders by Aimee Nezhukumatathil, and I see the copy in front of Lindsay and Mez as well. So if you haven't already read the book, we hope that you're inspired to do so after the workshop ends. So as we engage in conversations about the natural world and the land we inhabit during this year's Nevada Reads programming, one of our goals is to have our readers become better stewards of the earth and to learn more about the land that we live on. So as part of this goal, I wanted to acknowledge where I'm sitting today in Nevada. So we are gathering on the traditional land of the Northern Paiute, the Southern Paiute, the Western Shoshone, and the Washoe people past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. So to learn more about the land that you reside on, I'm going to share a link in the chat to help you right now. So I'm going to introduce our wonderful workshop leaders for today. Lindsay Dimitri, she's on the right side. There she is. She grew up in Genoa, Nevada, and she earned an MS from the University of Nevada, Reno. Lindsay has worked as a rangeland ecologist studying plant and animal interactions in the Great Basin for 15 years, but she recently began to teach 7th and 8th grade science. During her master's degree studies, she co-taught field ornithology for 3 semesters, where students were taught to identify the birds of Nevada by sight and sound. And then on her I guess it's on her right, but on our left, we have Meredith, or Ms. Solin. She first came to Lake Tahoe in 2007, following her passion for the mountains and snowboarding. She holds a BA in studio art from Florida State University, where she studied in their BFA graphic design department and the European Graphic and New Media Design program in London. So currently you can find her as the folk school manager and a resident artist for Martis Camp Club in Truckee, California, where she's presided over their exclusive program for the last 5 years. So Lindsay and Meredith, I am so excited to be working with you. I'm going to turn it over to you now. And just again, as a note for everyone, we would love to have you participate throughout this workshop. So don't be shy to share your questions in the chat and just follow along. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much for introducing us, Kathleen, and thank you for having us too. We're so grateful and honored to be asked to do this class today. I'm very excited.
Thank you all for joining us as well. It's our pleasure to bring you one of our passions, and that is nature journaling and bird sketching in particular. So we thank you for that introduction as well, Kathleen. If you have any questions about who we are or what we do, we can answer some more of those at the end for you all, so we can maximize our hour and a half here that we have. If at any point in time you have any questions, we do welcome them. We like super interactive participation. It makes every class that we do different and unique, and it also helps you guys to follow along with us. What we have here today for you guys, we're going to be going through a nature journaling practice in our sketchbooks, and we would love to give you some tips and tricks for how you can make sketching a bird in particular very approachable and very awesome and very fun. Yeah. So even if you have never sketched a bird before, we pride ourselves on being able to make this really fun for anyone from a first time to more advanced.
Yeah, we've had ages like from 6 all the way to,
78.
Okay,
was
there
our
you go.
oldest student.
So yeah, we try to make it accessible to all age groups and fun for everyone, just so that you can go out and, have a sketch, get one down in your book. It doesn't have to be perfect, but then you can go back and actually like create something in a memory that you can look back on. And I want to read a quick passage from the World of Wonders, just because I really related to this one as a bird nerd. It was, of course, the cactus wren chapter, and I grew up with the Buick's wren in my front yard. I've seen house wrens and canyon wrens, but I've still never seen a cactus wren. So I just really loved this, and I just wanted to read a quick. But perhaps what I love most about these feisty birds is how fierce and crafty they are when they protect their nesting area. The cactus wren's nests are pretty formidable for the desert. At first glance, it looks as if someone's football has been pricked on a cactus needle lodged in the armpit of a saguaro. And I just thought that was like such a good description, because the third bird we're doing has a really distinct nest. And so I was like, not only do I like the description of them as feisty, because that's always how I've thought of wrens. So when I read that passage, I'm like, yes, because they're always swishing their little tails around and they look angry. So I don't know. Yeah, I liked that whole chapter.
Really,
but
birds with attitude, cute. I would say.
Yeah, I know.
A lot of attitude.
It makes it more entertaining if they have attitude, that's for sure.
So one of the things we're going to encourage you, oh no, can't tell, technology. One of the things we're going to encourage you to do as we go along, part of nature journaling is also part of capturing your story of the day and the story of what you see. And by adding story to our observations, we create a more personal interaction with both that memory and our subject. And you'll find that as you go out on a day-to-day basis and you start journaling, you start cataloging your day and your explorations, you will remember things better. And you will start to hunt for a new thing every time you go out. So we're going to do 3 different bird subjects for you today. And each time we're going to talk about how we look at a new thing. We've also got a couple different camera angles for you. So if at any point in time you want to see a different angle of what we do and how we do it, we've got some handy dandy technology on our side. So we've got our overhead view, which is great for seeing what we've done. This is one of our local birds up here. This is the Western Tanager. And funny story, I almost crashed my car one day because of this. Because if you are going to see a beautiful yellow flash of light go in front of your car, obviously you've got to pull over and see it.
Yeah.
Except I tried to pull over a little bit too fast, too hard.
Yeah.
So
the first time I saw this bird, I was just like dumbstruck. It was before I started teaching field ornithology, and I was going on a backpacking trip, and I had pulled all my stuff out of the car, and I just see this flash through the trees, and of course I just had to drop my stuff and start chasing it. And it was like one of those, I'll definitely never forget the first time I saw one. But even down in Vegas, you can see them during migration. I actually checked out on eBird, and people were still even seeing them last week in the area. So yeah, they are one of the most tropical looking birds we can see. And I included this quote in the information package I added because it is very poetic and kind of goes, I feel like this could be something out of the World of Wonders. But they say the Western Tanager is too drab a name for these bursts of sunshine from the tropics. Males in their crimson, gold, and black raiment adorn Sierra forest during the spring and summer. There are few Sierra birds that experience it, or few Sierra bird experiences that rival the view of a male singing from a treetop in full sunlight. And they really are bursts of sunshine. Like, I think that is like the perfect way to describe them. So while we're drawing them, it's something you can keep in mind because they are definitely beautiful little birds. And hopefully, has anybody here seen one before? I can see? No? Yeah?
we got
Maybe.
a couple head shakes,
Yeah.
we got a couple hand raises.
All right.
Love it.
Yeah, they're so pretty. So I've been to Ecuador 3 times, and the tanager diversity down there is just mind-blowing. We were referring to them as eye candy. So then when I came home, I just appreciated the one tanager I get to see. I appreciated it so much more because I'm like, oh man, they're just so pretty. So yeah.
So this is our first little friend of the day. And for previous classes that we've done, gosh, a lot of birds at this point too,
Yeah.
that are local to our area. So we've had a great time sketching them. This is by far one of the most colorful birds that we do. And we're not going to start off by approaching color first. What we want to do is start to break down the form and the anatomy of a bird so that you can better kind of judge it as it flies by and get used to capturing a moment very quickly as it happens as well. One of our other camera angles we're going to be using is right here, the drafting angle. So you could see exactly how I hold my pen or pencil when I do this. And you could see kind of how I drag my hand across. We can even hold up things a little bit closer to you from this angle too. So if at any point you want us to change it up and switch to a different angle, you just let us know.
So I also included in your packet a bird topography page. I don't know, I'm sure, I think it's on page the third or fourth page. And I'm not going to quiz you guys. I just include this because when you're drawing a bird, it's good to know that there's all of these different aspects. So if you want to get it to look more realistic, then kind of just having just in the back of your mind that there are all of these different parts that the wings and the back and the head can be broke down into, then just will allow you to add a little bit more detail. Just for instance, that, there are multiple feather types, such as primaries and secondaries. And then you have overlapping those feathers, the larger flight feathers, you have coverts, and being able then to add like the shoulder feathers. This will just allow you to add some of that more detail. And also, if you only get a quick look, you can kind of look to these areas, get it in your head, and then get it down and sketch a lot faster. And so I just like to include this just so people can have an idea of what they're looking at, and maybe take some more mental notes when the bird's going by quickly, or if it's sitting, then these are some of the pieces that you can observe. And it's like you're putting these puzzle pieces together to create a more realistic looking bird. And as a birder, these are things that I'm looking at to be able to identify the bird, right? It's almost always looking at the overall shape. I would always go to the head next, looking at the shape of the bill. Is there an eye stripe? What's on the throat? Then I move down to the belly. So it's trying to get little glimpses of all of these different parts so that I can put them together and get a good ID. So yeah, I'm not going to quiz you guys, but it's just fun to include. And then sometimes I might use some of these terms, and then you'll be able to know what I'm referring to. So the Western Tanager, I included a range map so that you can see that we're lucky enough up in the Reno, Tahoe area to be able to see this bird during breeding, and but then also on migration. They breed up in Sierra forests, and they can be actually pretty common. Like down in Reno, you can see them pretty regularly, especially in areas along creeks or along the river. And down in Las Vegas, I'm sure it's the same way. If there's an area that has some cottonwoods or any riparian areas, they're generally probably going to be looking for insects in those areas. And one of the easiest ways to find them, I feel, is once you know their call. And I liked this description that their males singing sounds like they sound like robins with a sore throat. So it's a pretty good description. I'm going to play the call now. Do-do-do. And that's the peek-a-deek. If you see in my what I wrote there, the peek-a-deek. I hear that and I immediately think Western Tanager. But it kind of, so for a robin call, they always say it says chirrup, cheerily, chirrup, cheerily. So that is a good description that they sound like a robin, because they kind of have that very cheery sounding song. And then I'm gonna play a call real quick. So that's the pickerick, or is this one pick-a-deek? So if I hear that, I instantly look to the top of the canopy, and I'm looking for bright little yellow ball of sunshine at that point. So yeah, knowing the call, I have the Audubon app, which has the calls, but most of the bird apps at this point have calls, and it's just always nice if you really want to get a good ID to be able to at least look the call up. I mean, after a while, you'll start to memorize them, but it's not required. So,
all right. So
yeah.
Who's ready to draw our first bird? What I want you guys to get out right now are your pencils. So whether you have a regular pencil or a mechanical pencil, doesn't matter. Anything is going to work for this. I'm going to tell you a little bit though about the proper way to use a pencil when you are journaling, because that can make a big difference if you decide to go back into your work and try and kind of add a little bit more detail to it. So for this exercise, I'm using a sumo grip. And the reason that I love this as a mechanical pencil, if you can tell, it has a nice wide grip on it. So if you've got any kind of old injuries in your hand, which as a goalkeeper I do, or if you've got a little bit of swollen knuckles, anything that gives you a little extra cushion is nice. One of the first exercises I'm going to have you do is just go up into the top corner of your page, And I want you to draw a line as hard as you can. Then I want you to try and draw a line as soft as you can. You're going to barely see that on camera probably. And then next to that hard line, draw a little squiggle. And next to the soft line, do the same. Now what I want you to do is try and erase half of it. And you're going to see the difference between hard pressure and light pressure when you're journaling. That hard line does not want to go away, but that soft line is your friend. So when we're using a pencil, we want to be very aware of how hard we are pushing down into our page. If you could look at the paper itself, it actually has a tooth to it, which refers to the grain of the page. And when we press really hard, we actually create a little divot in the page. And that's what makes it hard for our eraser to get down in there. So we're going to try and draw softly. But you guys are not going to see me draw softly, because if I did, it wouldn't come out on camera. And that would be very bad for a Zoom class.
Yeah, so I'll be doing the nice soft strokes, and then Meredith here will be doing the heavier ones so that everybody will be able to see.
The other tool that you're going to see me use is going to be a Micron pen. It was on this ply list as an optional add-on. This is a black archival ink pen, meaning it does not erase and it does not move when it gets wet. Another one of my favorite tools is the Uniball Signo pen. This is a white gel pen. And if anybody has any questions about what other kind of materials we like or we recommend for classroom use, you could feel free to add that into the chat and we can answer all those questions a little bit later. So we're going to start to dissect how to draw a bird. And for this, if you guys have your packet imagery handy, I think we're going to first start with, oh, I'm going to show you guys this image too, because this is beautiful. So this is 3 different stages of the tanager in flight. And this kind of goes along with the story of how are we going to capture our bird and how are we going to draw it? Your chances of drawing something the first time that you see it, mid-stage flight, being able to capture all of these beautiful wing separations, it's slim and none. Yeah. So maybe we're going to look for a little bit more patient and steady fellow to follow along with. And that would be a perched bird. But you can see in images like this beautiful splaying. We've also got an image in your packet of the female tanager as well.
Yeah, quite a bit more drab per usual. Females are not the flashy ones, which works well when they're sitting on nests. But she's still like a really pretty kind of olivey yellow, a bit washed out, but still a very pretty bird, but obviously not as beautiful as the male. And both of them still have this more heavy bill. And so that is something to note when we get to the Oriole later. You'll see quite a different bill, and that, it indicates what kind of food they're eating. So they will be eating seeds, insects, and even sometimes some fruit. So having that larger bill kind of allows them to eat a wide variety of prey items.
Yeah, does anybody else, before we go into our first drawing, have any questions about the tanager for our lovely resident ecologist here? You can pop those up in the chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, we can also hear your lovely voice as well.
Okay, which one?
It sounds like we're good to go. All right. And I did see somebody chime in the chat before. Thank you for sharing the bird call, and you are so welcome. We love hearing our birds too. Yeah. So we're going to start our first drawing of the day with this subject. So if you've got your packet and you can turn to that, that would be awesome. Otherwise, you're going to be following along with me, and I'm going to switch off back and forth between this view and this one. So if you ever need me to bring it back up on screen, you just let me know. So what we want to start to do is break down our bird into its basic shapes. And we're going to want to place those shapes on our page in the proper space. And we do that, I'm going to give you, whoops, see, don't press too hard. We're going to start with the letter A, and the letter A for us is going to represent angle and axis. So let's say we've got our subject and they're so friendly perched right here for us. We want to say, okay, what angle is this bird sitting at? Is it sitting straight up and down? Is it going horizontally across? Is it pecking at something in the bark? So I would say that this bird is sitting at about a 45-degree angle. And I'll show you what I mean. So this right here, you didn't know you were doing math today too. We tricked you. You imagine it I'm going to switch to black. Oh, no, I'll just press harder. I'm going to set up my axis line. So this would be 0, this would be 90, and we've got our bird right now at 45. And the way that I get that is I'm looking at the position of the body and also of the head. Then I'm going to go towards my basic shapes, what I've got once I've got my axis line down. So that is going to be my B. I am going to say that is basic shapes and blocking. All right, so my basic shapes. When I look at this bird, I see two very basic shapes right off the top of my head. That body looks like an egg shape that's tilted on its side, like it's right about to fall off my countertop, which has happened many times. The head looks like a slightly elongated circle. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to place first that egg shape, just like so. So I have both the top and the bottom of my egg going along the line of my axis. Now I also want to check in on how big is that head compared to the body. So when I go back to my photograph and look at it, I'm going to actually hold up my fingers. These are my pinchers of power. And I want you guys to hold up to the screen or to your handout and say, okay, if the body is this big, how big is the head compared to that? Ready? Here we go. Pinchers of power out. And I'm going to look and I'm going to say, okay, I've got the body. Now I slide it up. That head is a little bit less than half to me. So now I come back to my drawing and I slide up, say that's about half, right there. And now I'm going to draw my circle. Again, you guys are drawing lightly. I'm drawing a little bit heavier so that it will come out on screen. So there's my first two basic shapes.
And mine, for instance, you can barely see.
You can barely see Lindsay, even if I hold it way up to the camera. All right, my next basic shape that I see comes off of the tail. And on that tail, I can see what's almost like a triangle. It's kind of like a fat little triangle. And I want to ask myself, where does that triangle exist on the axis? It kind of goes right along with the body, right about here. But wait, I need my pinchers of power again. I need to figure out how long is this shape compared to the body. So I give it a quick look, swoop, swoop. Look at that. If you look, that little tail triangle is actually almost the same size as the head. So I can take my head, slide it down. I was pretty close. And there's my block in of the tail.
Is he with you? Yeah. Okay. No, I was just worried I couldn't see him. That's all.
All right. Now underneath there, we've also got a tail shape. And I call this the sweetheart tail shape because we've got a little bit of a tuck right here with that tail. Almost like I'm drawing a heart. And again, I'm going to check and make sure, you know what, I'm going to shorten that just a little, just like that. All right, there's our next basic shape. Now we've also got a really cool wing shape that's on the top. That one almost is like a scallop. And in order to place that shape, I'm going to look at where it attaches and where it ends. So as I come to my photo, I could see that it attaches near the collar of the neck. And when it extends down, it doesn't quite go all the way down that tail triangle. It finishes a little bit higher. So as I come to my sketch, I'm going to find what would be the collar.
It's the nape.
The nape, sorry. Birds don't wear collared shirts, only we do. And then I'm going to draw my next line, which is, I'm going to say right about here. So now I've given myself kind of a connect the dot point. And you could see with my hand, I'm not drawing just like one single line. I'm drawing these light little lines and I'm finding my favorite line out of those. And then I kind of go back in and darken it. All right, we've got one more shape out there, another triangle shape. It's right here. We need to put a beak in there. And the beak also has an interesting position in the bird's anatomy. We call it the eye-beak line. So as you are looking at our subject, if you looked at the center of the eye to the point of the beak, it almost exists on exactly the same line. So I can tell where I'm going to end up. But the other thing I want to make sure is I don't want to give this thing like a big giant Mickey Mouse eye. I want to give it a little bit more of an appropriate eye for this particular bird. So looking at the head, what I want you guys to do is turn it into 4 slices of pizza pie. And we're going to figure out where in these quadrants does that eye live. So if I'm looking at this bird, I'm going to say that that eye exists very close to the center, but maybe a little left and a little up in my quadrants. So a little left and a little up. Then I want to say, okay, how big is this eye? Well, does the eye go all the way to the top, all the way to the side? Does it end about halfway? Let's see. I'm going to say it's a little bit less than halfway, right about here. So now I know that my eye is about that big. From there, I can draw my little eye beak line out. And now I want to ask myself, how big is that beak? Because the shape of a bird's beak is very indicative of what species the bird is.
Yep.
If we are sketching a Western Tanager, it is going to be very, very different to my Lake Tahoe ravens, for example.
Or like the oriole, as I was saying before, the oriole that we'll be drawing later, they have a very thin beak, but where this guy has a very heavy bill.
Very, very heavy bill. And what the beak also tells us with a bird is what is its food source? What are its habits? Where might you be most likely to find it? So one of the reasons that this whole class came about is because during COVID, I would call Lindsay and I would be geeking out because for the first time ever, I got to sit in my backyard and actually observe what was around me. So I would call Lindsay and I would say, Lindsay, I just saw the most beautiful yellow thing and it had black and I really don't know enough about birds. I wish I knew more about birds.
Oh, yeah,
it's a good thing I have a friend.
I know, it's an evening grosbeak, which is a really pretty bird, and they have a beautiful song. So I think you heard it singing too.
I did, and they moved
Yeah.
through in this giant, massive flock, and
Yeah.
luckily they came through for a couple days. So what she would ask me is,
Yep. What is it doing? What's the size relative to a robin? That's kind of what I usually go off since everybody knows robins. That's like one of the things I'm like, okay, was it bigger or smaller? And what was his posture basically? Because the wren that we just talked about earlier, they're very horizontal and then their tail is upright. Whereas tanagers tend to sit somewhat more vertically. Yeah, they're not
Yeah.
really slumped over too much. So you could definitely tell just a lot by how it is sitting. And then often like, what is it doing? Flycatchers tend to perch and then sally out. So they'll fly out, catch a insect, fly back. And so that's a pretty obvious behavior. Or woodpecker, which everybody knows, they tend to be. But there are also other birds that forage along trunks, such as nuthatches. We have the brown creeper up here. But size-wise, they are smaller. So if you can put those few things together, then yeah, I was able to ID it over the phone for her.
really
So,
well.
yeah.
And then that became our habit during COVID. And then from that habit and that, how do we continue our friendship and get to see each other without seeing each other? Bird watching,
Yeah.
nature journaling. And then we turned it into a class. And now you're all here with us. So thanks again for being here.
Yep.
So if I'm looking at this bird and this bird has just perched on a branch outside my house, I'm also looking at its beak, which might be telling me what kind of things the tanager eats.
Yeah.
Now,
And these guys are related to cardinals. So if you've ever seen a cardinal, they also have very heavy bill. So their bill might not be as big as a cardinal, but even just seeing this bill shape, I would think like, okay, if I didn't even see the color right away, it would kind of start steering me in that direction.
so if I bring us back to our pizza pie, what I want to know is where does the bill attach onto my circle? Okay. So as I'm looking at it, it's almost like I could divide this head now into thirds. Here and here, because this bill is so thick, it's about that big. Now I want to know how far off did the bill extend? Was this bill as big as its head? Was it half the size? Was it itty bitty teeny weeny? I'm going to say that that bill is about a third. It's about a third. So I want about that much room over here And then we're going to connect the dots. Swoop, swoop. Now we have a bill that is kind of appropriately sized to what we're doing. So we've got a lot of our basic shapes in there. The last shape that would have to do with this would be about like where this perch itself is connecting to our bird. And that is going to be, I would say, as you're looking at it, we're going to follow this tummy along, just like this. And this perch is coming in right about here, right before there. And you can just draw a very basic shape. And then we can see when we go to add some more detail in later where the leg attachments are going to be as well. So we're going to now go in and we're going to go for the letter C. We're going to clean up our lines and add contour to our basic shapes. Okay, so what do I mean by that? As I'm looking at my bird, obviously it's not just an egg shape and a circle shape. I'm going to connect all of these lines together. I'm going to add contour to my bird. So I'm going to move around in a clockwise motion, and I'm going to start from the beak. Okay, so as I'm looking and I'm sketching, again, I'm doing my clean little lines. And I want to ask myself things constantly. Was this head really this round? No, actually it's not. He's kind of got like a little bit of a flat top here. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to adjust that. Now, was the back of his head perfectly round? No, that's not round either. So I need to add a little bit of floof back here and back here. And now I've gotten to the nape of his neck where we're also attaching back to his wing. Now, does he have a skinny little neck? Does he have a fat neck? Can you see his neck at all? All things that you want to constantly be asking yourself, and you're using your powers of observation as you draw. So now we've got our wing, and we've kind of got a broad line back here, and then we're going to start to round out our wing. And I'm pretty happy with where I got to here, but I want it to taper down just a little bit more. Now, did this wing tuck flush, or did it stick out a little? Aha, it stuck out a little. Not only did it do that, but I can also see two little bumps there. Okay, so now I can kind of draw back up and finish off that wing. Once I've got to here, I might take a check and say, okay, am I happy with the size of the wing compared to the size of the head? Because sometimes when we get to drawing a bird or an animal shape, you get all the way down to the bottom of your tail and you realize that your bird has somehow grown 3 inches longer than it needs to be. And that's okay, because we're always just practicing when we draw. But if we're constantly checking back for these little reference points, it makes it a really good system of checks and balances. Okay, so then as I continue down, now I'm looking for kind of the proportion of the bottom of that wing to the start of this little sweetheart tail. And that's probably about that big. Now I can tell I made too much of a heart shape there. So I need to kind of get that more into its true shape. So I'm going to start to work my line out. I'm going to flare it out, as he looks like he was kind of flaring his tail a little bit for better balance. I can also look at how his little fuzzy yellow underbelly came underneath there.
Those are called the undertail coverts, and those are actually something important to look at because the color can change at that point, and that can be an area that might be more distinct. And also in your drawing, if you want to add some detail, those are some smaller feathers that almost push up against the base of the tail. So, you know, if you're going in later to add some direction to the feathers, that to make it look more realistic, that would be an area that you could add some detail.
Now, part of our tail obviously is kind of obscured because this little branch that he's sitting on actually cut off our field of vision. So right now I'm going to add just a little bit more to our tree here. And then we're going to make these last tail feathers disappear into our tree. So I'm just kind of working this line right now, and I'm much happier with that. So as I come back up around again, I see that this starts to kind of tuck in. So I'm looking at the curve of the lines, because from one area of a body to another, those curves are constantly changing, and they're giving us little clues to the anatomy of the bird underneath. and how their body moves. So I'm actually going to make this line a little bit more up, just like that. Okay, so now I've got my next bit of tree. We've got the talons of the bird's feet. I'm going to skip over those for just a little bit longer. And I want to look at, can you see how the curve of the belly and the curve leading to the tail are totally different? If I was to make this line kind of draw off into space, it'd be coming way up here. And the line of his belly would actually be coming back here. So you can think of these as curves. So look at that line of the tail to the line of the belly. I want to make sure that I give my little buddy here a nice full belly. He did a great job hunting. He's got a nice
Caterpillar.
full belly of caterpillars. Okay. So now you can see how I've changed that line to give him a little bit more fullness leading up into his breast. So now we've gone almost all the way around the clock. We're all the way back to the breast. And as I'm looking at that, we also obviously see the glorious color of the tanager, and we want to try and not get distracted by that color just yet. But it does give us some clues as to where some other angles of change are. So if I'm looking at kind of that collar of that brilliant red is also about where the breast takes a dip down to the belly. From there, I'm back up to the neck again. And here's where I really want to look across and check out the back of the neck to the front of the neck and say, does this guy have a skinny neck? Does he have a thick neck? Have I done his neck justice? Have I put him on a diet that he didn't need to be on? And I'm going to say that neck connects a little bit more smooth and then comes back around again. Just about like that.
Yeah, actually, if you blow on this area of a bird, you can see the crop and see how full they are from that day, from what they've eaten.
And now I'm up at the actual beak of the bird. And a lot of times what we do when we're first learning how to draw birds, we draw a beak and it stops flush right there. But does it actually do that? Nay, nay, I say, it does not. Look at how the beak actually attaches back. It comes back into the head of the bird. This bird is a 3D object. So that bill doesn't just get stuck onto its face like a Halloween costume. It's got to attach and wrap around to the side. So I'm going to make sure that when I'm drawing, I do that justice. So again, I'm looking for my connect the dot points. Where does that beak actually connect back to? Is it all the way back to the eye? No, not quite. But look at the size of the eye, and then look at the space from the eye to the beak. Oh man, that's about one eyeball more. So I'm going to mark on my paper, here's one eyeball. There'd be about two eyeballs. That's my connect the dot point. Now I can go back and look again. Aha, I also see that the top to there swoops. It's a curve. It's not a straight line. So I'm going to add in my first swoop of the beak. And by adding this curved line, I'm sure you can see it makes a heck of a lot of difference than just a straight beak line back. Now I'm going to look at the bottom and I'm going to see how does the beak attach there. And you'll actually see it kind of drops down and away. It does a little bit of this move. It doesn't just sweep straight back up again. It comes down and then it links back up, about like that. And now because of what the tanager eats, you can see he doesn't have a very thin beak. I'm going to add the line from the tip of his nose to the corner of his mouth. And it's just about like this.
It has that little hook in it, like from the
Has a
cardinal
little hook.
Yeah.
Just about like that. So now I've got a nice messy sketch of my bird. Does anybody have any questions up to this point so far? Feel free to open up your mic or type it in the chat. And I will give you guys just a second to kind of complete your trip around the clock with your bird. Looks like we have a very quiet chat room.
Everybody's
But
focused.
a lot of people have their heads down, so that's a great thing. It means you're drawing. And every once in a while I see the flash of a smile, and that's even better. So then I know that we're being like corny and punny, but not too much.
Not overdoing it.
Yeah, you're basically just hanging out in our living room with us,
Yep.
doing what we normally do as friends. being extra, extra silly. Okay, so now that we have gotten through our alphabet, we're going to get to the letter D. And you might have an idea what this is. That is detail and define. Now, we're taking a lot of time with this sketch right now. Though Tanager tends to be our class's favorite, and because it's also the brightest, it's the most fun to go back and add color to. So we're kind of trying to kick this off with a nice long process. But as we go to our other birds, we're gonna speed things up just a little bit.
So it'll be more realistic for actual nature journaling, but
Exactly.
so we can practice the methodology and the shape too.
And for nature journaling, it's not cheating to bring your phone with you.
Yeah.
We encourage you to be present in the moment and try and sketch what you can, but it's okay to go and take a quick shot too. All right, so as we want to come through here and add some more details, I'm going to look at things like the banding on the wing. There's some very cool detail in there. And I want to try and think about what are the shapes that I see. So I almost see in that top yellow band, I would say it's like a little diamond shape.
It's actually called a wing bar.
It's a wing bar.
And those are another characteristic that can be diagnostic and help you to identify a bird, is looking to see patterns on the wings, including looking for wing bars.
There you go. And you'll often notice it when you're out journaling because it'll appear like a flash of color or a flash of white all of a sudden. And it can be a big difference if you see that, for example, in a tail, what species you might be looking at.
Yeah, outer tail feathers can also be white and provide contrast, and that can be another diagnostic feature. So yeah, if you only see a bird, taking a few notes on, you know, wing bars, outer tail feathers, some shapes to the some shapes, like Mez's drawing, how she draws the wing bars, a little triangle on there. It's just some of these basic shapes. If you could take notes on them and jot them down, then you can go back at least and fill some of them in afterwards.
Let me make sure you guys can see just how messy my sketch is right now. Okay, we are not, I'm not doing this very clean because I want you guys to see how many lines I use as I'm drawing. But at this point, we also want to be starting the practice of journaling. And you might add your notes in right away. You might wait until this stage, but here's where I might draw a couple lines that say things like yellow diamond. And then a white. And I would call that sort of a white swish. And there are no wrong words that you're going to use here because each one of you are going to have a different way of seeing and interpreting what's around you, and that is part of building your story and your day. I might try and associate a color. I would say, like, this is sunshine yellow, and I am from the Sunshine State. And I almost wrote Sunshine State there. Did you see that? So we're going to go with it. It is Sunshine State yellow now. How about here? That's like brilliant red.
Yeah, it's pretty neon, huh?
And I also want to make a note that it grows stronger as it goes up. I've got some neat little patches in here that say maybe tufts of yellow. So I know that when I go to color this, I'm not just coloring his head like one solid red. I'm going to make sure that I add a little bit of tufting of yellow as we move around too. So as we come around, just make your own notes here. See what it is that you can see. Whether you have a handout or if you're going off of the image with us is going to make a little bit of a difference here. Other things I might note. I see that our guy has a little chestnut brown eye. And then we have some more very interesting feathers that are around the eye itself.
Yeah, he almost has a yellow eye ring at the bottom portion of the eye there.
Frequently, you'll also see that eye ring as having white feathers too.
Yeah, and that can be a diagnostic trait as well.
Yeah, I might make some notes on the beak and what the beak colors are. So my page is starting to fill up with lots of fun notes. We've got black wings with white sides, white pinstripes. That's what it reminds me of today. And each time we do this class, we try and notice something different every single time. And that's what makes the practice really, really fun of itself. You will start to see things in a different way and just kind of let things speak to you as you are out in nature as well. So this is, I'm going to say more of a charcoal gray. And all of these notes are going to help you when you take your nature journal home and you go to add color later. All right, so more cool details, more cleaning. So as I go in now, what I might be doing is starting to remove some of my guidelines that I had before. I don't necessarily do this in the field. We're very much in the studio right now. And that's why we have kind of the freedom of time to do that. So your pencil or mechanical pencil might have an eraser on the bottom of it. You might have an extra eraser in your art kit right now. Whatever it is you've got to use is fair game. And as we start to clean this, we could start to really get a feeling for how well did we capture our subject today? How true to form did we stay? And how much did our skills improve today? Some days I have really great days. Other days, it looks like I have anorexic birds. You know, it just happens. But that's kind of part of the practice. And it's not just about drawing the perfect bird. It's about having fun while you do it. And sitting next to one of your best friends sometimes too, if you're very lucky.
And just observing something pretty in nature.
Observing something pretty is always fun. Yeah. So as I'm in this last process of detailing, I might even come back in and add like a little eye flare here, color in my iris. Now it actually looks like a bird and not just like something that has weird, crazy eyes. And I might use my pencil just to do a little bit of light shading that would indicate where I'm going to come back in and add darkness or color. Again, I'm just doing really fast little light lines here. Actually, turn itself off. Just like that. I might add a little bit of shading. And now that I've gotten to this point, I can also start to add in those talons. And the reason why I save them for last, it is so quick. I mean, it's really quick. So I'm going to look at the attachment point and how many toes can I see? So right here in my bird, I could see 2 toes. 1, and I kind of break it up into the lines that go along with the knuckle. 2, 3, done. This one, a little more curved. Done. Okay. Now this one right here, I can see a separation between, there's a little bit of space, right? So I'm going to draw first part out, leaving a little bit of space between that leg and our stick. And then now I can see 3 toes. So the first one comes down and a little bit to the right. The next one follows, but comes a little bit lower. He's the longest toe. And then the next one, it's longer than the first, but not as long as the second. So this is all about making tiny little comparisons as you go along. Tiny little comparisons, which let you know how each bird is different than the last. Other things that I might note is the way that feathers move around the head is also a really cool thing that's going to differentiate your drawings and start to make them better. So don't just assume that all feathers go in one direction, especially around the eye. They're going to move and they're going to swoop around here. Depending on the quality of the photograph you manage to capture or your reference materials, you're going to see different things each time you do this. And to give credit where credit is due, we also brought some of our favorite books here with us today, and we can show those.
Yeah, I actually, included them in your references, but some of my favorite books. This is my first field guide, so I always have to credit Sibley, and the drawings in these books are amazing. It's always cool to see how other people capture birds. My newest field guide, which I'm pretty excited about here, is the New Birds of the Sierra Nevada. Yeah, some pretty, the artist in that book is really incredible. And for some more natural history, this is a fun bird too. And I just love the cover. It's rosy crowned finches, which are only seen at high elevation. And I still have yet to see one, but I just really love the whole cover on that. Yeah, if you zoom back a little bit, it's just a gorgeous piece of art, basically. So yeah. These are only a fraction of the field guides I have. Kind of have a problem, but those are probably my 4 favorites. So,
and some of my favorites, many thanks and credit to John Muir Laws, whose books are just amazing. And he also has some wonderful exercises that are on his website. This one is a bit teaching specific, but you can see an image from his journaling practices of how he's building from basic shapes into a detailed sketch and using fun journaling notes as well.
Yeah, and he also, if not just to teach nature journaling, but he has one to learn. Yeah, so this one be good just to start your own practice and to learn a little bit more about the practice. And it's just got incredible drawings throughout, so it's just cool to look at.
Alrighty, so we've kind of wrapped up a little bit of where we want to go with our Western Tanager for now, and an introduction to the ABCDs of how we draw a bird. So we'll take 10 more seconds. If you want to add any other notes, I'm going to put our image back up there for you and talk a little bit more about why we chose this image in particular. We find that when you're first learning to draw, drawing a subject in profile is the easiest. That means a subject that you're only seeing half of. So if I was to try and draw something that is off axis, or maybe I saw a lot of one eye and only a little bit of another, or that was looking straight ahead at me, I would need to really understand the concepts of symmetry, and I would need to understand the concept of perspective a lot more than just capturing a first basic image. So I would encourage you in your practice as you move forward that start from a profile and build your way up. So this guy even is slightly off angle on the bottom, but it gave us a really cool way to show you like how the tail feathers attach to those undertail coverts and some more of that body there.
Okay, so our next bird.
Oh, and I'll show you one more thing. So you could see the difference in artists. Here is Lindsay's sketch as she was doing it with us. Lindsay has a beautiful lightweight stroke to her work. Mine, obviously, I'm trying to show for camera, but I tend to be a little bit more heavy and graphic in my lines as well. All right, so we're going to turn the page or get a new page in your journal, whichever one works for you. One thing about journal maintenance that I would say, as you are going to move along in your journal, be conscious of what kind of media you are going to be using. Meaning, if I am going to be using, for example, watercolor, I'm not going to turn the page and do anything heavy on the next side. You also see here as I'm doing watercolor, I'm doing some color tests. So it's great to leave yourself a little blank page for working notes, for extra details, anything like that. As you go to close your books, if they are wet media, you can sometimes get sticky page, or you can get a little bit of carryover or bleeding. You can get the same thing with pencil work as well. Pencils all have a kind of graphite in them or charcoal. And when you go to close your book, you might get a little bit of pickup on the other side. So I always like to leave a page in between when I can. And again, you can always fill that later with more details, thoughts, stories of the day.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the call here because this is a fun one.
I'm going to bring up an image of our next bird.
Yeah, so even though that call sounded like typical red-tailed hawk, it was actually the Starling J. They are notorious for having incredibly complex vocalizations, including imitating hawks. And they actually will imitate hawks and scare off other animals. But other animals such as chipmunks or other rodents and even ground squirrels, they actually will listen for the alarm calls of Starling Jays so that they know when there are predators around. So other animals in the forest actually know their calls, which I always think is really cool. But here's one of their other main calls. Yeah, not the most beautiful. Unlike the last one, they really do need a cough drop. Sounds like they do have a very sore throat, but very telling when you do hear that call. I immediately think, okay, there's a Stellar's Jay. There's some trouble around. Jays are so intelligent that people often find them annoying because yes, they'll steal cat food and a lot of stuff like that. But it's just because they're just so intelligent, and their intelligence actually allows them to exploit a lot of different food sources. So they will not only eat, insects and pine nuts, but sadly they'll also eat other nestlings of other birds or eggs. So toucans also do that. So whenever I see toucan Sam, I always think he didn't eat Fruit Loops. He is eating other stuff. So I mean, a lot of times intelligence does leave them to, eating some more interesting food sources, but they are just really beautiful. And we saw on Sunday quite a few Stellar's Jays. They're just, that bright flash of the blue, and they have a pretty widespread range and something that you can see down in Vegas if you just go up into the mountains. So I included them just because I figured everybody across the state, or at least along the outskirts of the state. So, I mean, in the middle of the state, you don't get them. You get the scrub jay instead. But in the, mountainous areas, you get them. And they're really cool and very funny to watch.
I get them up in Lake Tahoe, and I saw Michelle in the chat. Yes, probably is the bird call that's driving your cat nuts right now. When I first moved here, I had a pickup truck, and if I heard that call, it meant that there was birds in the back of my pickup, and they were eating whatever they could get into. Because if you own a pickup truck, you know that people sometimes think it's their garbage can as they pass by. Or if you only have a two-door, you might actually have groceries back there that are being, taken away from you. So very, very funny birds. A highly intelligent bird. Yeah, highly, highly intelligent
Very
bird.
cool to watch them.
Yeah. So we are going to go into a sketch of the Stellar's Jay. And I'll show you guys an image from a previous class that we did. This one does have a watercolor wash over the top of it, as well as some black ink pen that we use. Sometimes we like to involve something like a Pigma. And this one is let's see, and choose this page. So you can tell the difference between watercolor black and ink black. Much more high intensity. And if you get the right kind of brush pen, it will also be waterproof, so it won't move if you decide that you want to go and add some more color on top. So I'm gonna get out my pencil again, and we're gonna go to our reference image. If you wanna turn to it, bring this little guy up to your screen or turn to the page in your packet, please. And I'm gonna keep flipping back and forth. Now this time we're gonna try and sketch a little bit faster because we've gone through the ABCDs, but I will call it out as we do it. One thing that I would encourage you guys to do as you get in the practice of nature journaling is to try and shorten it. In the art world, we might call that doing gesture drawing. And gesture drawings are usually timed. So I'm going to get out my handy dandy stopwatch, sponsored by Apple, and I'm going to just kind of time us for how long this takes us to do so that we have a goal for our third drawing of the day. All right, are we ready? Wiggle your fingers, get your eyes cracking. Here we go. So, Mr. Stellar's J. First off, letter A, angle and axis. You know what? We kind of gave you guys an easy one. This is pretty close to the first bird we did. We're looking at another 45-degree angle here. So I'm going to come to my page, and I'm going to draw my 45-degree line.
Tail and head are a little off.
Yeah. Now, there might be some other angles that we need to see, though. The head is very, very upright here. So instead of just going along that one axis line, I'm going to add a couple more. I'm going to go up. So I'm going to pick a point here, and I'm going to say, okay, here's my up. Now, there is another axis line that I see as well, and that is the tail. That tail is not going in line with the majority of the body. That tail is going a little bit further down in a dip. So just try and estimate where you think that might be. And for me, if this is, I realize this is not coming out on screen great for you guys. So here's my first line, here's my headline, and here's gonna be my tail line. Now, this might not necessarily be where I put the head and the tail, but I just want those angle lines down there, and we can shift things as we go along. Next, let's go to our shapes. So again, looking at kind of an egg shape for the body, but this one is a little bit more elongated to me than the Western Tanager was. So I'm gonna come to my first line here, and I'm gonna put a little bit more elongated of an egg. Again, draw nice and soft because we're gonna come back and we're gonna add more definition as we clean and contour our shapes. Next, we're gonna look at the head, okay? This head, look at where it's positioned on the body itself. The Tanager picture that you just did, it was very forward. I would call this up and back a little, almost like he saw us and he was like, hey,
Yeah, he was
what
saying,
are you
"Hey,
doing, bro? Why are you here?
Got any food?"
Yeah, got any cat food I can eat? Okay, so this line is not where I need it to be. I need that line over here. And I need my circle to be back here at about that position right there. Now we've also got our tail. And at this point, whoops, I forgot to get out my pincers of power and say, how big is that head compared to the body? Okay, so get out your pincers, slide that head, and for me, it is less than half. So I'm gonna come back to my shape and see how I did. I did kind of like super less, so I might add a little more volume to that shape right off the bat. Now there is also a cool crown effect. Do not get confused between the actual head and the crowning of the feathers. So what we want to start with is just that general shape. You can, it's your sketch. If you want to throw that mohawk on there, in my world of skiing, it's Johnny Mosley. Oh, I'm sorry.
Glenn Plake.
Glenn Plake. Whew, sorry, Johnny Mosley.
Famous Lake Tahoe skier from the 80s and 90s, the huge mohawk.
Who I've gotten to ski with before, and he's a super nice guy.
Oh, cool.
So we've got the Glen Plake bird. Yay. All right, now I want to be looking at the tail, okay? How big is the tail compared to the body? Get out your pinchers of power, slide it down, almost equal to me. So from here to here, so I'm going to cut it off right about there. Now I've got my first connect the dot point. Looking back towards the body, where's my next connect the dot points? Okay, so I'm gonna look at the line of his back. The line of his back almost extends down to that tail. So I'm looking at this line right here, okay? I might even bring this line up. So I know it's gonna end here, but I think it's actually shifted a little bit. Now I'm going to look at where it attaches underneath his belly. I'm gonna say it's right about here. And then what other things do I notice about this shape? It's not just one solid triangle. I've got to break this up. So he's got kind of a little chunky butt right here. That shape, and then it really thins out and tapers to a point. Okay, so I know I'm already getting rid of this line, and I'm already getting rid of that line there, so I don't confuse myself. All right, now coming back to find some more of our basic shapes. I can see also, I want to give him a little bit more of a belly, right about here. And I also need to start adding in that beak. So again, thinking about cutting up our head into 4 slices of pizza, where do we see that eye? Is it in the upper quadrant, the lower quadrant, the left side, the right side? Where do you see him? It's probably not ever going to be dead in the center. So as I'm looking, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to say it's right about there. Now I want to look at the size of the eye. Definitely smaller than where our tanager was. I'm actually not too upset about the size that I drew that eye. And now I'm going to come and make my eye to beak line. And I want to ask myself, where is this beak pointed? Okay. Is it straight across? Is it a little bit down? Is he looking a little bit up? He's actually looking a little bit up. So I'm going to draw my line just a little bit up. Now I'm going to measure and see how far does this beak need to go out. It's coming back to my picture. that beak is actually quite long. Like it is almost the length of his head. So I'm going to take the length of the head, slide that over. I was really close, maybe about to there. Now, how thick is the beak? How thick is my triangle? I'm going to say it's a little bit higher on top and a little bit shallow on the bottom. So, you know, we have our different kinds of triangles that we use. So a little bit higher on top, a little bit shallower on the bottom. So if you're seeing that eye beak line, you could see how I gave it more volume above the eye beak line and a little bit less volume below. All right, now I've come back around to the top of the head. Why don't we give that cool Glen Flake mohawk a shape as well? I'm looking at where does that mohawk take off from and where does it terminate? Where does it end on the head? Okay, so I'm going to say his forehead actually is a little bit taller. That angle of the mohawk swoops back, and it's not just like one thing. He really has been using some product today. You know, he's a guy that cares. He's got a lot of ladies to show off to.
Well, it could be a she because they're not sexually dimorphic. So the males and females actually look identical in Stellar's jays, unlike in the Western Tanager or the Oriole.
I just like to softball him up there for Lindsay in case you're wondering. Yeah. All right, so we've worked our way around and now we have a little bit more. Let's see. All right, so now I'm going to come back around and we're going to clean some stuff up and we're going to add some contour lines so that we are squishing all of our shapes together. So pick your favorite starting point. I'm going to actually start from right back here on the mohawk because that was the last place I was at. And I'm looking at the back of his head. There's kind of a little bump out there. So I'm going to add that little bump out here. Okay. Then I'm going to thicken up his back a little. He's got like one little hump right there. Nice strong flyer. And in fact, I'm going to see how there's this dark grayish bluish, and I can sweep this line and I can already tell where my color change is going to be. I can also tell where some of these wings of flight are going to come over. And another important thing to note when you are drawing birds is that as the purpose of the feather changes, it changes structurally and it changes how we want to draw it. So the little fuzzy little tufts where you want to pet a bird's belly, that's lovely. Those are tiny little short strokes. But the ones that are the wings of flight, thicker, heavier, straighter, longer. So we're adding a little bit more dimension and character to the feather shape as well as just the shape itself. So as I come down here, and now I can see we've got, let me load another image for you. Check this out. So you could see these secondaries that are very different from the other feathers that we have as well. And one more cool image. This one's not in your packet, but I like how this one works for here. So you could see kind of the mantle feathers changing to the covert feathers in our chosen image. Ta-da!
Yeah, I did like the wings on this, and you can see the very slight little striping almost on the secondaries, the blue striping, which is so pretty.
So I'm going to try and get a little bit closer for you guys. There we go. Oop. Okay, so I'm now looking at, I kind of add a little banding here and then swoop, swoop, swoop. Now, where does that wing terminate in junction with anything else? Oh, how about this right here? Remember that little fat part underneath his tail? Look at how the wing comes almost to that point. So now, again, connect the dots. Is it flush? No, it's not. So make sure you leave a gap. Okay. Is it straight up or does it have a little swoop? Ah, it definitely has a swoop. So that swoop starts from about here. And we go not just down, not just here, but swoop. Coming a little thin. And look at the difference just adding in these really appropriate lines makes to what we're doing. Might even notice like there's some big stuff there too. Don't want to get too detailed yet. We're still on the letter C. So we're going to proceed down the drawing. And we're coming to our nice long tail. Again, I'm working my way around the clock. So I just did my wing. Now we're going to do the tail. And I'm keeping that same shape. I'm pretty happy with that shape. I might point that just a little bit more at the bottom, come back up, and that's all I want to do that. I don't want to get too crazy carried away, but I do want to note that it extends up past this point. It's up to here. Okay, now we can go underneath, and there's also a fair amount of shading going on because we have some longer feathers. So I might go ahead and just block in some shade right there. Now look at the feather direction change. You can note this. Like as soon as you observe it, make a note of it. Okay, and how full was he? Is he a good hunter? Is he an okay hunter? Does he go to In-N-Out Burger a lot and hang out in their parking lot? You never know. But as he comes up to the neck, he doesn't have a really crazy pronounced breast shape to me. It's not sticking way out, but it's sticking out a little bit. So I'm gonna let this come just a little farther. And now I'm also connecting up to his neck. And I'm gonna reference across and ask myself, am I happy with how this looks? Do I think I need to add a little bit more volume in any of my areas? And also when you do use really thick lines, kind of has a slimming effect. So I'm gonna clean a couple of those out so I don't get confused by them. Nobody likes a confusing bird. All right, so we're gonna try and finish this off in the next 3 minutes. Believe it or not, that was 12 minutes. And as we come up to the beak, now I'm looking, where does that beak join up? Right about here. All right, and here we go. And now you see again, I've made that little line, so it's not a straight connection back. Made a little underneath. I'm keeping that same low volume under the beak, high volume on top of the beak. Okay, and as we come around, we've got some really cool features in the coloring here. We've got these two flares of blue. And I'm just going to kind of note that blue flare. Okay, then I might give a little bit more love to my mohawk. Again, I'm using these really quick, thin little sketchy lines. And I might just black that in. So at this point, I can get rid of some of my guidelines. A, B, C, we're on D, we're on detail and define. If we even get to that point, awesome job. If not, we're just gonna end here because we're gonna say, hey, dude, I'm only doing a 15-minute sketch. I'm not doing a 20-minute sketch.
He flew away. He's looking for more cat
Flew
food.
away. I know he heard somebody else with the pickup truck that just went to Safeway. Full load of groceries, waiting for his arrival. And I might just take some time to add a couple details as to the direction of some of the feather shape going on here. I might add my notes for where I might add color.
Yeah, so one cool diagnostic thing, you can see the two bright blue lines or stripes on his forehead there below at the base of the crown, basically. And those are blue in the western range of this bird, but then they turn white as you go east in their range. So we, the ones that we see around here have that really pretty, it's just like an electric blue color. It is very flashy, yeah.
Yes, it's a flashy bird.
It's very flashy.
Appropriately flashy bird. All right, and last but not least, I'm going to look at what are his talons doing, what are his legs doing, and to do this, I'm going to introduce one more cool concept, one more cool way of looking at things, and that is what those angles are. You might remember these from school. How about right angle, acute angle, obtuse angle? Sometimes when we look at a subject, we're looking at the subject itself. Sometimes we're looking at the negative space. Without turning to my image, what do I mean by that? This would be the leg. This is the negative space around the leg. So what I invite you to do now is to try and figure out, what is the angle here? Is that an acute angle, an obtuse angle? I'm going to say it's an acute angle. So I know it's about here. And I'm going to set the lines just like that. Okay, then I'm going to look at these shapes, these negative shapes that are left behind. And it's a great way of double checking, how did I do proportion wise? And I'm actually pretty happy with this little guy. Now he is standing on a stump, epically proud. And I just might sketch really quickly that I could see really big legs, feet, talons coming off of this guy. And how they attach in. And that is the end of our time. Put your pencils down. No way, really? Yes, really. Don't worry, you have a packet with all of these images in it, and then you're gonna go do your homework and look up some more books and some more fun things. And once again, here's the journey of two artists. And if you guys would like to share any of your images with us, just go ahead and hold your notebook up to the camera. We'd love to see how you've done after two sketches. I see.
Oh,
Laura.
wow.
Let's see. That is sweet.
That looks awesome.
That is
Michelle, that
really
looks really
awesome.
great too. Yeah.
Laura's got one. Oh, I see Fran. I see Michelle. I see Christy. Look
That's
at these
great.
birds.
All right.
How many people out there, is this your first time really trying to sketch a bird? Raise your hand. Nice.
Awesome.
Not too painful, I hope. A little bit of fun.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that looks great.
Wow, we've got
Diana,
some
you got a
awesome
good-
birds.
Good mohawk going.
Oh, that's
Or the
so
crest.
cool.
I mean, technically, but I prefer to call it mohawk as well. So, all right. Should we see if we can do the Oriole faster?
Ready?
Okay.
All right, and then we're in. So that was a little bit longer than a 15-minute sketch, in case anybody was wondering what that was. I need to do a speaker change real quick.
So I'm gonna play for us the call of the Baltimore Oriole, and I included another quote of their description of the color. The vibrant oranges and blacks of the male's Bullock's Oriole stand out like living embers in the green foliage of Sierra trees. And I just thought that was so beautiful. And these guys, I actually have seen them out quite often at Stillwater National Wildlife Refuge, which is in pretty desert habitat, but then there's a lot of clumps of cottonwoods, and that's where I've actually seen them nesting, and they have really interesting, cool, like pendulum shaped nests. There's the female. She's got that nice gray belly and then the yellowy orange head and tail.
And here's the male.
And their song, to me, I never miss this one. It's got that ch ch ch. So it's got that great interjection. It's a very obvious song to me. So this is one, once again, if I hear this, I'm immediately looking for that bright orange. They usually have that ch 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 somewhere in their call. So yeah, for me it's pretty. Yeah, for me it's pretty. I even have it in that one, jet because I've picked a few different of the descriptions that I relate to. But birders have all kinds of mnemonic devices to remember bird calls. My favorite is probably, the cheeseburger is the chickadee call that everybody knows in the Tahoe area.
You got to know the cheeseburger bird. And if you want to see, if you guys did get to the gallery at Nevada Humanities, you might have seen this image, which I did. And here's our mountain chickadee. And
they
funny
say
story.
Cheeseburger. Yeah. So everybody here knows that, but
so this is a watercolor composite, meaning I took two different photographs. This was me hiking to a point above Incline Village to get this landscape, and then going back and adding in the mountain chickadee, to which I showed my photo to my friend, and she immediately said, "That's not where they live." I said,
I didn't say live, I said stand. They usually don't perch. It looked like he was perched on the sagebrush or the rabbit brush. I'm like, chickadees don't perch on shrubs. And I felt like such a jerk afterwards. I was like, okay, that was so critical and such a bird.
But she was right, because as an artist, I was like, it's important to know if you think my subject was in the sagebrush.
Yeah.
But I was
maybe
on.
he saw saw something really tasty over there and was like, okay, I'm gonna go get in that
I
sagebrush.
cannot resist. So I need to be on this shrub. But anyway, so that's how you can, a way to take your journals, your sketches, your photos, and do something really cool with it afterwards.
Just
But
don't show them to your bird nerd friends.
don't show them to your bird nerd friends. Yeah. You can show them to me. You can email me and I will give you all the praise in the world. All right. So we are going to flip the page now. If you would like, it's your journal. I've got some pages to burn in this one. I want to fill it up. And why don't we do the female? What do we think?
Yeah,
Lindsay?
it's more interesting.
Let's do the
And
female.
we're not coloring it anyway, so.
And the reason I want to do this too, this
some
is
lady love on this one.
little lady. Let's give the ladies some love this evening. So we're also going to do something that has a very different angle to what we've been doing. I would say this bird is about to swoop on something extremely tasty.
Yeah, I mean, you can put oranges out for these guys and they will eat it. They will even come to hummingbird feeders, and you can see with that long, thin bill that they are able to drink out of certain feeders. So they once again have a diverse diet. They do like a lot of insects and caterpillars too, but yeah, like I said, you can often see them, especially in Reno. I had a friend who had one of those feeders attached to her window for hummingbirds, and she sent me a picture like, what is this giant bird at my hummingbird feeder? I'm like, oh, it's an oriole. That's so cool. So
yeah. So this is, I like that, Michelle. This is a fierce, strong mama hunter.
Yeah.
She is going for some food for her kids.
Yep.
You know,
She's got
holiday
her-
traffic and all. We're coming up to Thanksgiving really soon. This is what we're all going to look like going into the supermarket. Like, I got things to do. Here we go. All right. So we are going to get our timer back out. Don't be afraid. I'm going to try and aim to keep us at 5 minutes, and that way we will still have a couple minutes left at the end of class. If anybody has any questions for us. So, are you ready? You can do it. You can do it. 5 minutes. Here we go.
I'm gonna try to draw
Ready?
smaller.
Little fingers, crack your knuckles.
So I can finish it.
Shrug your shoulders. Do whatever you need to do. Jump a little bit. I see kids on a couch. I want to see you jump.
Want to draw or jump?
Draw or jump. Do one or the other. Gosh, Mez. Okay. So here we go. Ready, set. Let's do this.
Angle.
Angle. Access. What do we see? Where's this mama bird going? Just about like that. Okay. I'm going to block my shapes already. I've got not just an egg, but this is like an egg with a little bit of funk to it. Okay. That belly's really hanging low.
Then the
So,
back is arched.
Yeah, it's almost like a crazy opal shape. I love opals. Right? Now, where's that head? A little bit high. Check out this line. Check out this obtuse angle right here to here. I'm going to use that to my advantage. All right? And I'm going to say pinchers of power. Head's a little bit less than half. Right about here. Oh, we're doing it. You guys are doing a great job. Look at all those heads down. So busy. Okay? How about this? How about I just go right ahead and also put in a beak and an eye because I could see this line. Look at her look down. She's so intense. So intense. I would not want to get in between her and whatever it is that she sees. That beak, how big is the beak compared to the head? It's not quite as long as the head, but it's definitely more than half. So I'm going to take a little bit there. I'm going to take a little bit there. And I'm going to say that actually this one, the bottom of the beak is a little bit thicker. So I might already make a little note real quick. As we quicken up our sketches, we do start to add more notes sooner. Okay. So here, I already can tell I didn't quite give you enough justice. So I'm going to sweep back, sweep up. Good. Okay. Now I'm going to swing back and I'm going to find where this tail is going. So the tail is kind of counterbalancing here. And the tail, not quite as big as the body, about 2/3. Good, I just made it. Or I'm going to tell myself that I just made it. That tail is coming about here. So here's my original angle line. Here's my second angle line. And now this is a very blocky tail. That's almost like a super long rectangle. So let's add that super long rectangle on back in. And then we're going to swoop. We're going to feather him up. Oh, we're doing great. We're at 2.5 minutes. Look how time flies. And already it's kind of a bird. Okay. Now I'm going to add in the wing. And I'm also going to add in this wing by saying, where's the bottom of my shape? it's a little bit lower than half. Where are my connection points? Okay, well, right above half, that one line here, and then I can see the mantle really extends back here. Now I'm going to pick up one ring for one row of coverts, then another ring, secondary coverts. How about tertiary coverts? Did I get that right, Lindsay?
Tertiary coverts.
I don't know. I might be making some stuff up.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I've got these 3 stages of feathers already built in because I'm looking at the shape as I'm doing this, looking at that general shape. And then I see I've also got some other feathers. We got a tuck right there. Then we have a little negative space coming back to the tail, coming back up. Okay, cool. I am decently happy with this. Here we go. So now I do see that there's a little bit of a rise to the mantle coming back towards the head. Let's shape up that head a little bit more. I'm going to say that's about there. Okay. I made that beak a little bit too pointy, a little bit too Wicked Witch of the West.
It's pretty witchy.
It's pretty, it's a very witchy beak. Guess what that's getting written down? Witchy beak. Okay. There's also some cool little cheeky jowls going on and a really cool, she's got some eyeliner on.
Yeah, and she's got a
Mama got dressed up to go to the
eyeliner.
store. Yeah, seriously. I also think I need to move that eye back just a little. So here's me correcting that. And now I'm much happier with that. Now that kind of branched off. All right, we're in our final minute. We're going around the block. So going from the beak round to the belly. I see a little flare of orange. I'm going to draw on that flare. Sorry, yellow, not orange. Back down, and right about there, look at this strong leg. Look at the legs on this mama bird. Okay, now we've got an angle change. A little bit of an ankle. She got her nails done so we can clearly see them. It's beautiful, beautiful position of this bird. Okay. And then we've got her standing on an object so she's not floating out in space. Coming back, maybe a little fluff. Maybe I'm gonna let you guys squeak a couple more things in. I'm gonna add nice strong lines so that I can see exactly what that looks like. And last but not least, I'm gonna come in, watch what just adding in these wings does. Swoop, 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 swoop. You see how they're a little bit denser. And then we also have this really cool row of white. Oh, there we go. And then we have some mottled feathers in here. And I'm just using some tiny little dashes to bring out that mottling. Okay. And then we have some fuzz. We've got some fur. She looks quite intense, I gotta say. And then I might use my pencil to really quickly shade. And we are at time. Is it my best, my favorite of the day? Well, of course not, because I did this in 5 minutes. No way. But if I was out in my yard and I could only grab my journal and sketch really fast, I'm gonna say Lindsay definitely won on this one. But drawing things really dark first really hurts you.
You have a disadvantage.
Yeah, so I can't quite meet her as close, but you can see there's 2 different takes on our lovely, wonderful mama right there. And we are at, just so you know, I'm not lying, we're at 6.5 minutes.
All right.
So we're going to give it a pause now. You can look back at your drawings and see what did you do different each time? What did you see? What did you pick up on? And what's the difference between like a 25-minute drawing, a 15-minute drawing, and a 5-minute drawing? And how much do these notes matter? Because man, I sure was able to write down a whole lot more my first time. So I'm going to be able to come back to my journal and really dial into that. And with that, we're going to close out the practice session of our class for today and open it up for you guys to show us your work if you would like to show and tell, or ask us your questions. And if you want any feedback or just anything in general, we are here for you right now. Let's see, do we have any show and tell?
Oh,
out
nice,
there?
Michelle. Yeah, she got a good
Yeah.
angle. Hers looks really good.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
It looks great.
Thank you.
Wow, that looks
Whoa.
great. You did a good job getting the angle too.
It looks like a very, very speedy bird right there.
Very fast.
Very fast.
Here's what I did a long time ago.
Oh, I
Wow.
love it.
Look at the story.
Oh,
Crest is flat. It can mimic sounds.
Very cool.
That is awesome. Thank you guys for sharing.
Yeah, I love that you have those notes in there. Oh, that looks great. So you got a good hook on the bill too.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Yes,
Fran.
that looks great.
That is awesome.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that looks
Christine.
beautiful. She got a lot. Of
Excellent.
Yes, thank you,
Marcia,
Marcia,
you're
for
so
joining
welcome.
us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you,
Well,
guys.
if anybody has any questions out there, I think on your packet might have our contact info, but we can always get that in. We want to say so many thanks for just having us here, for inviting us into your evening with you, and for giving us the chance to share our passion and our friendship.
Yeah, thank
and
you
our
guys
love
so
of
much.
birds.
That was so fun. We appreciate it. Thank you for joining us. That was so much fun. We'll be rescheduling one more. So
Yes,
love it if you guys could join us.
Very
for it
sorry to
again.
anyone that we had technical difficulties for
Yay,
Sunday's
Christy!
class.
Thank you. I'm glad you drew a bird for the first time. It's so fun.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thanks,
Ann.
Bobby Ann. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, Christina, for joining.
Thank you everyone so much for coming
Kathleen for
here.
running the class. Yeah.
So we're gonna send an email later this week or early next, suggesting if you'd like to share your birds with us or share your thoughts. We always love to see and hear
Yes.
from you.
Please.
We will be rescheduling that Sunday workshop to another Sunday or possible, different day of the week. So
Okay,
keep
that'd be
updated
awesome.
with that. Maybe we might, do different birds or the same birds or color. You never know. It'll be a big surprise. So
We'll
hope
do different birds. I like to put together different packets. It's fun.
Yeah, so by all means, so definitely join that workshop since we'll be doing different birds. So again, thank you again so much for coming today. Just keep in touch with us and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Yeah, have a great night, everybody. Thanks again. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Happy
Bye.
nature journaling.